So those of you who are part of Raglan Road Church will know that this year we've spent time looking at heroes of faith from the Old Testament and the New Testament, and in more recent weeks at heroes from different parts of church history. And we're going to continue this series over the summer as part of Midweek Church here on YouTube. And for the first couple of weeks, I'm going to look at some unsung heroes from the Old and New Testament. So tonight I'm going to look at some unsung heroes from the Old Testament. Now, we had many heroes to look at in our earlier series on a Sunday morning. People like Daniel, Deborah, Rahab, David, Joseph, Moses, and many more. But in the Old Testament, there are also heroes who often work in the shadows and not in the spotlight. They're the ones that often make an impact through very quiet faithfulness and also very courageous acts. Now, what encourages me about some unsung heroes is often they're working in some very ordinary circumstances. Often they're working in everyday tasks, yet still they do some heroic things that are part of God's redemptive plan. So I want to highlight a few unsung heroes of the Old Testament and focus perhaps in particular tonight on the theme of courage. So in 1 Kings chapter 18, we've got a particularly dark time in Israel's history. We see King Ahab and Queen Jezebel are on the throne. We're in a time of persecution for the Lord's prophets, but within the palace, there is a man of courage. And this man is Ahab's chief steward. He's a man in a position of power, but he is also a man that's been surrounded by a very evil and corrupt regime. Now, this particular hero that I'm referring to this evening is Obadiah. Obadiah is standing up to evil and corruption, just as we should be doing today as followers of Jesus. And we read this in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 3 to 4. And Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly, and when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave and fed them with bread and water. So there are often times when heroes need to speak out, but often there are times when heroes need to act and to show wisdom. And this is a great heroic example of someone using their position as a servant, a steward, a minister to protect God's people. Now, it's a quiet operation, but it's an operation that fights evil and corruption. It's an action of sacrifice. It's a very risky action, but it's also an action that saves lives. Like we see today with much of the persecuted church across dangerous parts of the world, faith seems to flourish and thrive when people are prepared to take actions that may put them at personal risk, but are saving the lives of those around them. There are times that we need to use a platform or a pulpit to speak against evil, but sometimes we need to come against evil and corruption with some very small, principled acts of defiance. Maybe you've come across something that seems corrupt or unjust, or something that just feels plainly wrong in your workplace or in your family or in your neighbourhood. And sometimes we need to take small acts of defiance that help others to resist evil. There's another example of risk and hiding in Exodus chapter 1, with another two unsung heroes, the two midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. This time it's the evil of Pharaoh that is being resisted. And we see in Exodus chapter 1 verse 17, it says, the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but let the male children live. So remember the context of this. Pharaoh is seeking to control the growing Israelite population. He's issuing this evil and horrific decree to kill all newborn Hebrew boys. But these two heroic midwives stand in defiance. They feared God more than they feared Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. They risked their lives, they risked their livelihoods and their families by choosing to preserve life rather than obey an unjust command. And their story is a powerful reminder that true courage often isn't about wielding a sword, but about a quiet conviction to do what's right, even when it's unpopular or dangerous. These were ordinary women performing a regular job, as much as midwifery is a regular job, but their integrity had extraordinary consequences. God bless them for their faithfulness. And sometimes in the midst of courage, we also need to be encouraged. And there's another two unsung heroes in Exodus, Hur and Aaron, who do something to help sustain and encourage Moses. Remember when Moses, in the midst of battle against the Amalekites, stands on a hilltop with his arms raised in prayer. And as long as his hands were up, Israel prevailed, but when they dropped, Amalek gained ground. And if you lift up your arms for long periods of time, you can't help but put them down again. But two men not on the front line, not in the heat of battle, they do something that changes the destiny and the outcome of that battle. Aaron, his brother, and a lesser-known figure called Hur. As the battle rages, what do? They hold up Moses' arms. And Exodus 17 verse 12 says this, "But Moses' hands grew weary, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun." Now, we can't all be Joshuas in the battle, but we can often be a Hur or an Aaron that encourages and lift up others in their battles. Not everyone is called to be a visible upfront leader, but some are called to be steady hands, some are called to be a faithful presence, some are called to use their wisdom, some are called to use their quiet strength behind the scenes. And your role in supporting and encouraging and upholding others in their spiritual battles is just as heroic as those who are on the front line. And often it's the quiet courage that doesn't get the press or the attention, but it's that quiet courage that often makes all the difference. There's one more hero I want to mention from the Old Testament. It's the wise woman of Abel Beth Maachah. Now in 2 Samuel 20, we see the rebel Sheba leading a revolt against King David. And we see Joab laying siege to the city, threatening to destroy it. And this is a moment of desperation. But then someone steps up, and it's this unnamed wise woman who steps forward. Now, again, she didn't command armies. She didn't hold any form of political office or royal office. But what she does is she quietly acts with wisdom. I would say she's a peacemaker, albeit one that does come up with a solution that's not particularly peaceful, that involves a beheading. But it is a solution that means that evil overall is dispersed from the city. And in fact, a whole city is saved. Now, this person is unnamed, despite the fact their wisdom saves the city. And maybe sometimes we don't feel that we're recognised. We don't feel our name is known. But sometimes it's the defiant acts of courage, the moments of encouragement, the people speaking truth or reason, or people finding solutions or bringing reconciliation that does change lives. It can even change communities and even change history. Now, we may not know always who these heroes are. We may not get headlines. We may not see these people get the press or that they deserved, but they remain heroes of faith. So church, this is a time to be people of courage, but also to be people of encouragement. As you speak truth, as you speak peace and reconciliation to those around you, do it in the powerful and wonderful and beautiful name of Jesus, who is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and the Prince of Peace. So let's finish our midweek church time together and declare that beautiful name of Jesus.